Welcome to the 2016-2017 Loss Prevention Training for the Toyota Rent-A-Car Program, presented by Sedgwick Claims Management Services, a nationwide strategic partner for participating Trac dealers. The purpose of this training is to review key loss prevention and risk management aspects of the Trac program, focusing on proper rental agreement completion and employee usage, as well as some prohibited vehicle uses. The upcoming video was created using historical claims data, including common reasons for claim denial, as well as trends found in claims handling. After viewing this video, please consider what practices may need to be changed or reinforced within your own rental department. Why is proper completion of your Trac rental agreement so crucial? Because the rental agreement is a legally binding document and the cornerstone of your insurance coverage. This legally binding document or contract extends coverage to your dealership, limits the liability exposure associated with renting vehicles to the public, and creates an understanding between you and the customer who will be utilizing the Trac vehicle with your permission. All Trac rental transactions must be conducted on the approved rental agreement form, the Trac 8842 form, with an April 2008 edition date. Any deviation from this form must be pre-approved by TMS Trac Management before it can be used in your rental department. Unless otherwise pre-approved, all Trac rental agreements must be sourced or obtained from Terra Graphics. This includes any 2-ply or 3-ply hard copy forms if you are handwriting your rental agreements, or any PDF files of the front and back of the rental agreement that are loaded to your rental software or dealer management system, or DMS. Any backers of just the terms and conditions that are placed in a printer tray must also be sourced from Terra Graphics. Remember, the contract is two-sided and must be printed and presented to the renter as a two-sided document. Never print the front of the rental agreement and the terms and conditions separately and then staple them together. Please note, use of an unauthorized, non-standard rental agreement may be grounds for claim denial. Adding remarks to the rental agreement, such as refueling instructions or notes about tolls or parking tickets, is acceptable as long as the wording follows the pre-approved remarks created by Sedgwick. A complete listing of pre-approved remarks can be obtained from your Sedgwick support team or by contacting Terra Graphics. Proper retention of your Trac rental agreements is imperative, as you may be asked to provide a rental agreement that is several months or even years old for claim purposes. Record retention requirements for open, signed rental agreements are the same as for service repair orders, 6 years plus current year. Only enrolled Trac vehicles should be rented under the Trac rental agreement. If your dealership has other owned units that are also used for rental purposes, rental transactions for these other vehicles must be conducted on a different form. Remember, once a Trac vehicle is paid off and removed from the program, it cannot be rented out under a Trac rental agreement. Here's a loss prevention pointer. If you're using rental software or your DMS to generate and print your rental agreements, always have a backup supply of hard copy forms in case you run into system or printer issues or your dealership loses power. Regardless of the circumstances, a properly completed and executed rental agreement is always required. While this review does not include step-by-step instructions for completing the Trac rental agreement, we will be highlighting the key areas of the form that, once properly completed, create a legally binding contract. From an insurance standpoint, the Trac program requires that each and every time a customer rents a vehicle from you, the customer must present you with a valid driver's license and be at least 21 years of age or older, unless the minimum age is otherwise dictated by state statute. Never reuse license information from a prior rental or verbally accept this information from the renter. A photocopy or faxed copy of the renter's driver's license is not acceptable. You are required to view and verify the renter's actual driver's license at the time of each rental. Additionally, as part of your risk management plan, consider creating and implementing a list of your own business requirements for each renter. A few examples of these business requirements would include The renter must have his or her vehicle at your dealership for service or repair. The renter must have a credit card in their name, or the renter must be listed as the named insured on their insurance policy. Remember, always consistently apply all rental requirements to every rental transaction and every renter. Once the rental agreement has been completed and printed, always ensure that the individual listed at the top left of the rental agreement, which includes their driver's license and date of birth information, is also the person who is actually signing the rental agreement. The renter should write their full signature and not initial the bottom left of the rental agreement. This step is critical to ensuring that you have created a valid contract between the vehicle owner, the dealership, and the renter, who is now a party to your rental contract. The same requirements you apply to your renter must also be applied to any additional driver you wish to authorize and list on the rental agreement. Each authorized additional driver must be present at the dealership when the rental transaction is being conducted. You are required to view and verify the additional driver's license, to confirm the license is valid and has no driving restrictions, as well as to confirm the additional driver is at least 21 years of age or older unless the minimum age is otherwise dictated by state statute. Never accept a photocopy or faxed copy of the additional driver's license. Never add an additional driver after the rental agreement has been completed and signed by the renter, as this would alter the terms and conditions of your contract. Once the rental agreement is signed, if the renter then requests that an additional driver be added, or contacts you during the rental period to request this, you must close the original rental agreement and create a new rental agreement, which includes or reflects this additional driver. Remember, when you create the new rental agreement, both the renter and the additional driver must be present at the dealership and must present you with their valid driver's license. It's like starting a new rental transaction. If the renter indicates that no additional drivers will have a need to use the rental vehicle, draw a diagonal line through this section of the rental agreement and write the word none in the section. Have the renter sign, not initial, on the diagonal line that you've drawn, thus indicating they understand that no other individuals have been authorized to drive the rental vehicle. Never let someone sign the bottom left of the rental agreement unless their qualifying information is listed on the rental contract. Here's a loss prevention pointer. Make a photocopy of the driver's license and insurance ID card for your renter and any authorized additional driver, and keep this copy with your rental paperwork. This photocopy is proof of your due diligence to qualify the renter and any additional drivers who are now parties to the contract. However, when a renter or additional driver presents you with a military ID, never photocopy this ID. You may view, verify, and record or write down any information from the military ID, but don't make a photocopy. Accurately describing the vehicle being granted to the renter is critical to your contract. Always list the associated license plate, as well as the year, make, model, and full VIN of the vehicle. Do not use stock numbers, unit numbers, or simply list the last 6 or 8 digits of the VIN. Take the time to double-check your vehicle information to ensure that it is correct and matches the vehicle that is being utilized by the renter. Remember, some rental vehicles may look exactly the same model and the same color, so take the time to ensure that the vehicle information is correct on your rental agreement. If the rental vehicle is changed or swapped, either at your direction or at the request of the renter, discard the original rental contract and create a new rental agreement reflecting the new Trac vehicle. Remember, the new rental agreement must be completed and signed by the renter. Here's a loss prevention pointer. Remember that all Trac vehicles must be properly titled, registered, and plated. Never use dealer plates on a Trac vehicle. By far, the number one reason for coverage denials is long-term rentals. Any rental period that is longer than 30 calendar days is considered long-term. Long-term rentals are unacceptable and may result in coverage denial in the event of a loss. Keep in mind, for insurance coverage purposes, the rental period is measured by calendar days and not on a 24-hour clock. For example, a vehicle rented out on Monday the 5th at 3 p.m. and returned on Wednesday the 7th at 11 a.m. would be considered a 3-day rental, as the date out and the date due in each count as a calendar day, along with each day in between. Remember to be careful when setting the rental period during months that have 31 days. Always establish a valid intended rental period for each transaction based on the reason for the rental. Why is the customer renting a vehicle today? Is their vehicle at the dealership for service? Is this a weekend rental or a vacation rental? Understanding why the customer needs a rental vehicle will assist you in selecting a reasonable and realistic rental period. Select and list your intended rental period on the rental agreement. This is reflected by the date out and the date due in. Never leave the date due in blank, as this creates an open-ended contract and will become an issue if the renter refuses to return the vehicle or if the vehicle is out with the renter longer than 30 days under this same rental agreement. If you're using rental software to generate or print your rental agreement, we encourage you to avoid setting a same-day default date for the date due in. An example of this would be to default the date due in on every rental agreement to be 6 p.m. that same day. Past due rentals should be reviewed and worked every day. If the vehicle was due back yesterday or the day before, or worse, several days ago, you should be following up on these rental transactions to determine if a rental period extension would be appropriate or if you need to contact the renter to coordinate the immediate return of your vehicle. Extensions should only be authorized for valid business reasons, such as the renter's vehicle is being serviced and a part is on back order. All extensions should be thoroughly documented on the rental agreement or in your rental software, including the reason for the extension, the date the extension was granted, and the new authorized date due in. Never extend a rental period simply because the renter is not returning the vehicle when originally promised. When contacting the renter to coordinate the return of your vehicle, it is important to document these calls using some type of date and time-stamped phone log. Even your unsuccessful calls, such as the renter's phone mailbox is full or the phone number has been disconnected, should also be documented. Keep copies of any letters issued to the renter regarding the return of your vehicle, and always send your letters via certified mail so that receipt of the correspondence can be tracked or traced. The intent of the Trac program is to have rental vehicles available for use by your customers. However, it is understood that in order to fuel and maintain these vehicles, employees will need to drive them from time to time. Employee tasks associated with the care and feeding of a Trac vehicle would be considered scope and course activities and would include taking the vehicle to be fueled, washed, or serviced, or conducting a customer courtesy drop-off pickup at the customer's home or place of business. Additionally, a Trac vehicle may be utilized by a rental manager to conduct marketing calls to local or area businesses in an effort to establish a retail rental relationship. These marketing calls must be conducted between the hours of 9 a.m. and 6 p.m. The rental manager must be the driver of the vehicle, and the only acceptable passenger is another rental department employee who is being trained to conduct these sales and marketing calls. Always use a non-revenue ticket for you and your employees when conducting a scope and course activity. Never place a renter on a non-revenue ticket. Remember, all employees who operate a Trac vehicle for scope and course activities must possess a valid driver's license, which is not expired and has no restrictions. Here's a sample of the current non-revenue ticket. Here's a loss prevention pointer. Never provide a Trac vehicle to an employee for use as a personal or demo vehicle, as this is prohibited usage and would be considered grounds for coverage denial. If you elect to rent Trac vehicles to your own employees, the rules and requirements are much different as the liability exposure is much greater. These employee rentals must follow strict criteria in order to be viewed as a bona fide rental. Establishing a bona fide rental for your employees will assist in efforts to minimize the dealership's liability exposure when an employee is operating a vehicle that is also owned and registered to their employer. Employee rentals must follow the same process as any other rental conducted at your dealership. This includes properly completing the Trac rental agreement and ensuring that the employee meets the same rental requirements you apply to all your customers. The employee must be at least 21 years of age or older, unless the minimum age is otherwise dictated by state statute, and the employee must possess and present you with a valid driver's license with no driving restrictions. Additionally, the employee must also meet the business requirements you have established and apply to each of your customer rentals. The employee must pay for his or her daily rental fees. In order to establish this transaction as a bona fide rental, the rental fees must be paid for by the employee using his or her personal credit card. Cash rentals or paying for the rental fees via payroll deduction or interdepartment billing are unacceptable. Please note, once an employee pays for his or her rental fees, you cannot later reimburse or return the fees either directly to the employee or through some type of travel or company expense reimbursement. Remember, the employee is now a renter. That means that Sedgwick will pursue recovery from the employee's insurance carrier in the event of a loss. If the employee is uninsured or their insurance company denies coverage for the loss because the employee's policy does not cover rentals or it does not cover use of a vehicle that is also owned and registered to their employer, Sedgwick will pursue the individual employee for recovery of the vehicle damages. In order to maintain structure to the program, which allows for competitive pricing on insurance premium, the Trac program has guidelines for vehicle usage by a dealer. Be sure you understand how a Trac vehicle can and can't be used. Prohibited usage of a Trac vehicle is not covered under the Trac insurance policy. Therefore, if a Trac vehicle is being used in a prohibited manner by a dealership employee at the time of an accident, coverage would be excluded and your claim would be denied. A complete list of dealer restrictions is included in the Trac Policies and Procedures Manual. However, here is a list of the most common questions and issues that we see during the claim process. Do not designate and use one of your Trac vehicles as a customer shuttle. Never use a Trac vehicle for parts pickup or delivery. All rental transactions must be conducted from an approved dealership address or location. Any off-site locations away from the main dealership address must be reviewed and pre-approved as an off-site location. Never rent your Trac vehicle to a business or organization that plans to re-rent that vehicle to another customer. You cannot rent to high schools or nonprofit organizations. Trac vehicles may not be granted in exchange for marketing or advertising by another company or party. Never grant a Trac vehicle for promotional purposes. Trac vehicles may not be utilized as a chase vehicle to pick up or deliver another vehicle, another employee, or any type of paperwork for the dealership. You may not assign or designate any Trac vehicle to a specific employee of the dealership. Trac vehicles may not be used as a company vehicle or a demo vehicle. Thank you for watching this loss prevention training presentation. Please take a few minutes to consider your own daily rental practices to ensure that you are operating within the Trac program guidelines, as well as to identify any process improvements that could be implemented in your rental department today. Your next step in completing your 2016-2017 loss prevention activities is to take the 6-question test immediately following this presentation. You'll receive 2 chances to pass the test. Thank you.